Alright guys, Copper Cutlass here. So, I went out for dinner with my wife. We're back. This is like take number 4 because this is kind of a complicated subject. So we're going to talk about degreeing the camshaft. There's a million of videos out there showing you how to do it. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'm going to tell you what I did, how I went through. So, my setup isn't like the best. It's a little... Alright, we'll call it, for lack of better terms, ghetto, but it works because I spit out the numbers back to back to back, and I double and triple check my work. So from my understanding, a couple of degrees can change your RPM power band by 200. But you also have to worry about, in terms of valve opening and closing sequences, you also have to worry about cylinder pressure buildup, which also leads to heat buildup. And I'm not going to get into that whole dynamics things, but either way, so I degreed the camshaft, which oddly enough, there is some numbers there that would not make sense even to me, but it's just the way that it fell into place. So, I spent about 3 hours playing with it because this crankshaft, you hear my wife and dogs walking above me. So I got a 9 keyway sprocket and I played with it everywhere. And the numbers aren't exact. Even in the instructions, it tells you like, if you go to 2 degrees, it's going to be 1 degree, but it actually, that wasn't even the case. And I checked it multiple times. So, especially when I explain the dot to dot. When somebody tells you that you installed a cam straight up. Oh, hey, Finnegan. Dog's down here. So when somebody says their cam is straight up, what that means is that you're going off of the LSA, the lobe separation angle, which in this case, this camshaft is 110 degrees of lobe separation angle. But the cam specs that you're giving on the card is on an installed center line of 104. So the opening and closing sequences that you are given on that cam card are suggested on an ICL of 104. So I have the cam card downloaded on my phone, but this is pretty much the cam card without, the drawing of the lobe and all that stuff. But, the exhaust is supposed to open here and close here, or the exhaust is supposed to open here and close here. The intake is supposed to open here and close here. And this is the lobe separation angle, which is 110. The installed center line is 104. So they're telling you these specs are 6 degrees advanced. And this is actually the specs I got when I degreed the camshaft 4 years ago. Obviously, you guys know that we're going through a bit of a freshen up, just doing a little bit of cylinder head work, and we're just checking things out. We're putting this engine pretty much back together kind of as it was, with the exception of a little bit of cylinder head work. So, but I'll run this through you guys. This is where, all right, so this is brand new timing chain, same old camshaft. Dot to dot, the intake opened up at 12 degrees. The intake closed at 50 degrees. The intake center line was 107 degrees. So dot to dot, don't say it's straight up because this isn't even straight up. We're still 3 degrees advanced compared to being on a 110. And so comparatively, you look at like, say, your number makeup, and it's never going to be the same. But this is why a lot of people prefer the installed centerline method. The lobe on this camshaft is asymmetrical. It is kind of really tricky to get numbers, and I got them kind of close. So the closest I got was on 4 degrees advanced to match what the cam card wants. So we're going to go off of the intake. Just forget about the exhaust. We're going strictly off of the intake. So the intake, they want it to open at 17.5 degrees on a 104 We're at 16 on a 103, so 1 degree difference. On the exhaust side, on the intake closing side, sorry, is 46. This is 45.5, half a degree, no big deal. So that was me putting the sprocket on the 4 degree advanced slot, and that's where it was the closest, but it's supposed to be 6 degrees advanced installed, and it would be on a 104. And then the 2 degree advanced slot, it's 2 degrees across the board with 1 degree on the intake center line, and interestingly enough. And again, I double, triple check this stuff, and this is just kind of where it fell. But we're going to install it at 107. The intake opens at 12 and closes at 50. So, you know, you were 3 degrees difference from the installed center line, but we're actually like 5.5 degrees difference on the intake opening, and 4.5 degrees difference on the exhaust closing. But it is tricky to get the number on a asymmetrical lobe. It is tricky, but I did double and triple and check these numbers, and I kept reproducing the same numbers, and I even did it sloppy. I went from being super careful to being super sloppy, and I kept getting the same numbers over and over again. So I spent 3.5 hours doing this. I obsess about degreeing camshafts because it is the one thing where it is critical, and I'm not an expert engine builder, so I will double, triple, quadruple check my work because I'm not paying somebody, but this is where it pays for you to be careful and be tedious. I even went the extra mile, and I even put in the old timing chain that was in here, and again, our ICL dot to dot, right, straight up, it's 107, 107. So it just has to be the way that the timing chain is manufactured. And I even reached out to Mylan, which you guys know I've mentioned. He's been helping me with carburetors. He actually has some history with this camshaft. This camshaft came out of an engine that he originally built in his garage back in the early 2000s. If you guys go back to the original realoldspower.com days, if some of you followers out there can remember that, there was a member there whose online handle was Rick Finsta. I'm not going to say his real name, but that's who gave me the camshaft. That was that build. And so I reached out to him and asked him what he suggested, and he suggested for me to actually install it on a 107, which is where I actually installed it before. And that's where we're going to run it at. Because the car is geared, it's got the converter. It doesn't need the extra help to get off the line. You want it to be hanging up on the top end per, like, what he said to me. And that's just me reaching out to him to see what he thinks. And I value his input because, again, the realization that I've been building stuff for years doesn't necessarily mean that I'm good. I could be getting lucky. So in the last couple of months, I've used more resources and reached out to people to make sure that I'm doing it good, doing it as right as possible, and I've kind of switched it up just a little bit. So either way, we degreed the camshaft, and that's where, like, when you guys say I installed a camshaft straight up only means that you installed it straight up, meaning that you're matching that lobe separation angle. If you change it, then you're either retarding it or advancing it. The installed center line is 104. That changes this. But the cam specs, so say if this is advanced 6 degrees, you have to subtract 6 degrees from all of these numbers for it to work on this LSA, because you are retarding the timing, based on the sequence, by the way. So don't quote me on that, though. So either way, agreed the camshaft, and from here, it's pretty straightforward. We're going to install pistons. get the lifters back in, get the cylinder heads on. Well, Mylan did say I should have the cylinder heads flowed, and he can actually, through Pipe Max, get me some pretty realistic numbers. But we do plan on having this engine in the dyno, and I don't know. I just want to get this thing together. Going through a job change, so I've been a little busy with stuff personally. But yeah, I mean, this thing's coming together. And I'm glad that you guys have followed along. I got a lot of subscribers, so a lot of new subscribers, I should say. So share, like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram as Copper Cutlass, and you guys are going to get to see this engine through the process. And you guys have, if you followed along, you've seen that we've cleaned it. And, you know, Dave did the cylinder head work, and we're going to get this thing on the dyno. I don't know if I'm going to put this car or this engine in the car right away, because I still have the J-headed 350 in the car, and we just got the carburetor dialed in to kill, and I really want that engine to run. I think it can do low 1140s, maybe clip in 1130 now with the carburetor work that Mylan helped me out with. So stay tuned. We're gonna stay the course, do our thing. This is gonna come together. I just brought my buddy's 347 back home from work, and that's got to come down here, and I got to wrap that up. And then I might even pay to have that on the dyno, because that's a killer little 347 stroker piece that I just kind of put together for him, and life got in the way for him, so I'm paying to finish up the rest of it, and so he can sell it, get some money out of it, and help his family out. So either way, this is way longer than it should have been, but this is what we did today. Agreed the camshaft, got this all together. Share, like, subscribe. Follow me on Instagram. I'll let you guys go. I've made this boring enough. See ya.